Welcome back. Thanks for staying with us. Let's bring you the latest on the U.S. midterm elections as the race for the House seats gets tight. The control of the Senate is a toss-up as Arizona and Nevada count ballots. Now, former U.S. President Donald Trump has lashed out at Florida Governor Ron DeSantis as the simmering rivalry between the two top Republicans boiled over. For more on this, we are joined by Daily Maverick contributor Brooks Spector. Very good evening to you. Thank you so much for your time. Several processes will need to take place before we essentially get to know who will control the Senate.
Yes, good evening. And it's a complicated mess. It's not problematic. Right now, all but 3 of the Senate seats have been determined, which means that it's still in play between Republicans and Democrats. 2 states, as you said, Arizona and Nevada, are still in the process of counting their ballots. And in Georgia, the 2 contenders, Raphael Warnock, who was incumbent senator, and Herschel Walker, who was the Republican challenger, neither one of them won 50% plus 1 because there were some small party candidates who had a few percentage points of the votes. And the end result is there will be a runoff in December 6th, I believe, which means that if the 2 seats in Nevada and Arizona are determined one way or the other, Georgia could be the final determinant, which means we won't know who's in charge of the Senate until next month. And in the House of Representatives, meanwhile, they're still counting ballots for about 25 of the 435 seats that are left. And so even there, it's not entirely clear the Democrats have lost control. What this is, of course, is a major black eye for Donald Trump, who endorsed a whole series of candidates, many of whom did not succeed. And what that has done, as you alluded to in your intro, it has further inflamed the growing rivalry between the former president and the governor of Florida, Ron DeSantis, who won his victory overwhelmingly against his opponent. There were 36 governor races as well this time around. So the dynamic is the Republican Party is now really stuck in the question of who is its leader and who will be its candidate in, wait for it, 2024.
Sure. And, I mean, you speak about Donald Trump. I mean, he really is essentially still very popular and in the middle and likely to stand in the way of DeSantis. Talk to us about his party's base and the sort of influence he has here.
Well, the problem is he has a strong following among the base of Republicans, but in no way is that a majority of the population of the country. Roughly, think of it this way. The Republican base is perhaps the hardcore base, maybe 35% of the electorate, and half or more of those people are strong, staunch, never say die Donald Trump supporters, but the rest of the country is not. And the Republicans are now in the position of having to say, wait a minute, you've had your turn twice. And it's time for newer, younger, more vigorous, less vituperative, less angry-sounding leadership, someone who can win with the general electorate rather than simply those people who would march through fire on behalf of Donald Trump. Because you don't win an election with 30% of the vote. You win an election with the majority. The Democrats, meanwhile, have something of a problem of their own because Joe Biden, he's the sitting president. Regardless of how this plays out in the 2 houses of Congress, it's going to be tough for him to keep pushing his legislative agenda easily. But more importantly, if the Republicans begin to go to the next generation of leaders, there are going to be voices among Democrats saying, maybe we should have somebody who is younger, more vigorous, more energetic, a new generation. And so there will be something of a sub rosa, a subterranean kind of discussion in that party as to who will represent them in 2024.
Yeah, Donald Trump's been blamed for the Republicans' outcome, the performance in the midterm elections, but we're also reading that he is working on a comeback for the White House. I mean, what sort of impact will that have, especially listening to some of the remarks that he's had to make about, his former political apprentice, calling him all sorts of names, saying that he's average and he's lacking in loyalty, trying by all means to discredit him.
In the last week, 2 weeks of the campaign, more and more of the Republican candidates, those who won, it turns out, more and more of those people stopped mentioning Donald Trump, stopped mentioning their support and their allegiance to him, and began to try and explain that they were their own men or their own women, and that people should vote for them on their merits. The people who were clinging to Donald Trump for dear life, many of them are the ones who didn't make it through the final campaign. Mr. Trump's speeches and his statements post-election have become really problematic for a lot of people. They're either all about him, or they're, at least one that I read the other day, it was really hard to figure out what in the world he really was trying to say other than everybody else is wrong except me. And that's not how you build a candidacy or a reputation as a thoughtful, careful leader who can sway people with ideas. I think it's going to be tough. It's going to be a tough slog for Donald Trump over the next 2 years, even if he tries to and declares himself a candidate. He's postponed this declaration now, and he's said he's going to do it on the 15th of November next week. My guess is he may actually postpone it again till he figures out where the lay of the land, where the waters are flowing in all of this. In the meantime, Ron DeSantis, the governor of Florida, which is the third largest state in the country, 30 electoral votes and so forth, he did so well, and he's not a warm and fuzzy kind of guy, but he is a thoughtful, articulate, and careful politician and tactician, and that may stand him in good stead. And if he doesn't survive, if he doesn't make it through, there are other Republicans who will try as well. Once that dam breaks, then there's going to be a great scurrying for position.
Yeah, I suppose the ultimate question is then which party will control the twin chambers of Congress?
Well, as it stands now, as we were discussing, it is possible you will have Democrats still in control in the Senate, because if it breaks 50-50, the vice president gets the deciding vote on any vote in which the votes cast by the members are tied. And the Republicans, who have a very tiny majority in the House of Representatives, it's going to be a split government. But what this does say, I think, is that this is not an abnormal circumstance in American politics and history. You could almost say Americans tend to like having a split government rather than having all the power, all the authority, all the control in the hands of one party. They kind of like the idea that there's a bit of a break on all of that. If I can burden you with a statistic, in the 39 past midterm elections, that goes back well over 100 years, in 36 of them, the incumbent president lost significantly for members of Congress in the election. This time around, Joe Biden seems to have broken that spell.
Sure. We're going to have to leave it there for now, and thank you for your time. Daily Maverick contributor Brooks Spector speaking to us about the U.S. midterm elections.